Hi everyone, I'm back with the third tutorial in the series for the Stroller Tote Bag, and this one we are going to focus on sewing. And the first thing that I did was I ironed my fusible interfacing onto the outside piece of my 13.5 by 6 piece, and I also ironed my 17 by 34 piece onto the outside piece of fabric. And I'm going to show you how I did that by ironing the 13.5 by 7.5 piece of interfacing onto the outside fabric piece. So with the interfacing, there's a side that is bumpy. I don't know if you can really see the bumps or not, but one side is smooth. You want to make sure that the bumpy side is on your fabric, otherwise it will stick really badly to your iron. So you will have your fabric face down on your ironing pad, and then your interfacing you will just go ahead and line up so that it is even with your fabric. And I like to use a pressing sheet when I'm ironing directly onto the interfacing, but you don't really have to. You can also just line it up and then flip it over, which I might just actually do, and then just iron it on. What you do is you just leave it on for a couple seconds in each spot until it is completely stuck to the fabric. It doesn't take very long. And that should be good. So now the interfacing is on my fabric. So the first step in making our bag, I'm going to move my iron out of the way, is we are going to take our 13.5 by 6 inch pieces. We've got our outside fabric and our inside fabric, and we're going to place them right sides together, and we are going to sew along both of the long edges. So we're going to sew right along here on both sides, and we're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you can find that on your machine. There's probably a little mark, and it's probably different for every machine. So I'll go ahead and try to zoom in so you can kind of see what I'm doing over here. And if you want to pin this, you can. Okay, so we've got that lined up. And I like to backstitch. And then just flip it around and sew the other long edge. Okay. And then what we are going to do next is we are going to turn the pocket. This is going to become the pocket, and we're going to turn it right side out. I'm going to trim off my strings. We'll zoom out again. So we'll go ahead and take our fabric, just put your hand in, grab the other side, and carefully pull it through. And what you should have is a tube. So now what we need to do, this is where your hem gauge is going to come in handy. We are going to set our hem gauge, or you can use your ruler, at 3/8. And what we're going to do is make the pocket have a 3/8 of an inch of the back fabric coming to the front. So take your hem gauge and make that match 3/8 all the way across. Okay, that looks good. And then what you're going to do is take your iron and press that so that that 3/8 of an inch stays at the front of the pocket. What that's going to do is give a decorative little top edge. So next what we want to do is take our 2.5 inch strip of our front and our back fabrics, and we're going to do the exact same thing. If I can find the other one. So we'll have our outside fabric and we'll have our inside fabric, and we're going to lay them right sides together, and again sew along the long sides on both. I'm going to trim off my strings, and then this one will be a little bit trickier, but go ahead and turn this one right side out as well. Just keep on working it until it's through the fabric. So the fabric is showing on the front. Alright, and we are going to get the same 3/8 of an inch of the back fabric showing onto the front. So use our hem gauge again. There we go. Alright, and that looks good. Make sure that your seam in the bottom is pretty flat. Just go through that. And then we'll go ahead and press this so that our top border stays in place. Okay, now we need to get our zipper. And we need to cut our zipper down to 13 inches. And so what we're going to do is on our cutting mat, we are going to mark our zipper at 13 inches. So need some chalk. And you could pin this if you don't have any kind of marking tool. You just want to mark that at 13 inches. And what you're going to do is take that to your machine and sew over that several times so that it will help keep the zipper closed. And I often like to just use a zigzag. But this time I'm just going to sew over it. And then backstitch. Trim some of these strands off. And then what we are going to do is trim the zipper about 1/2 inch from where we sewed. So right about here. You can just go ahead and cut that off and toss away the end. And now what we want to do is take our zipper our pocket piece, which is the 13.5 by 6, and we're going to attach that to our zipper with a zipper foot. And I will show you what the zipper foot looks like. It might look slightly different on your machine, but it should look basically the same. So this is a zipper foot. It has little notches and you can sew on either side. So I'm going to switch that out on my machine. And we'll zoom in so that maybe you can see what I'm doing over there. And this I am actually going to pin in place. So now I have my pins attaching my zipper to my piece that is 13.5 by 6. So you will start. Oh, I almost forgot to switch out my zipper foot. Go ahead and add that. And you want to sew as close to the teeth of the zipper as possible. So I'm just going to run the edge of my foot right along the edge of my fabric, and that should work well. And I like to back stitch. Oh, zipper got caught. Okay. So I like to start with the zipper pull tab down farther. Remove your pins as you go. And then just take your zipper and push it to the back side so that it's no longer in your way. And sometimes that takes a little wiggling. Alright, now what you will end up with is something like this with your zipper attached, and you're going to do another stitch, 2 more stitches, just a little bit down from the one before it to create a little decorative stitching on your bag. And you can just pick a spot on your foot that gives you a nice distance. Again, got to get that zipper pull out of our way. Continue on. Looks good. And then we will do another decorative stitch a little bit lower. Okay, now what we're going to do is trim off all of our strings. And I have a lot off. Do just the same on the back, cut off any strings that you have showing. And then what you are going to do is do the same exact step with your 2.5 inch strip. And you're just going to attach that to this side. And I will add pins to help hold my fabric and zipper in place. Alright, and then over to the machine. There we go. And we are going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to switch my foot to the other side of the zipper foot. Get rid of that first pin. Zipper foot or zipper pull out of our way. Sometimes I have to lift my foot up a little bit more. And then again, do your 2 remaining decorative stitches. Okay. And then we're going to come over and again trim off any strings that we have that we don't want on our project. And that will create your zippered pocket. Alright, now we are going to take the 13.5 by 7.5 inch pieces. And this, your outside fabric should have the interfacing on it. And you're going to do the same steps you did with the other pieces. And we're going to sew along both edges and then flip it and make that 3/8 of an inch trim piece. So we need to take off our zipper foot and replace our regular foot onto our machine. And stitch this with a 1/4 inch seam. It's caught somehow. There we go. All right. Alright, so now what you will have is you will have 2 pieces, one that has your zipper and one that is just the 2 pieces together. And the next thing we're going to do is apply or attach these 2 pieces to the outside panel that is 34 by 17. And we're going to lay that out. And you can decide if your fabric is directional, figure out which side goes at the top and which side goes at the bottom. And we are going to place this is going to be the bottom pocket. We're going to place this 16 inches from the top of our bag. So this we need to get my ruler. And I'm going to line this up. And it should be centered in between the bag because it's not quite as wide. So then line that up at the top, line the bottom of this pocket at 16 inches. And I've got about 1 3/4 on that side and a little less than 1 3/4, so let's scoot that over. So that's 1 5/8, and it's right about centered right there. And again, make sure that it's still at 16, and I've shifted it down. All right, and I'm going to pin this in place so that it doesn't move on me. Probably be good to make sure that it is also 16 inches on this side, which it is. Okay, and then we are going to take our hem gauge, wherever I hid that, and this time we need it to show 1/2 inch. And we are going to take the zippered pocket and place it 1/2 inch above the lower pocket. Go ahead and line that up side to side with this one, and then just make sure that it is 1/2 inch away. And I'm going to, again, pin this to the large panel so that it doesn't move on me. And if you can see, it's not very pretty on the side of the zipper, but that's okay because the trim will cover that when we add the trim. Don't want my towel attached. Okay. Now what we need to do is top stitch around the edges of the closed pocket, of this pocket, bottom pocket, and you also want to stitch a line in the center to create 2 pockets instead of 1. And to do that, you will again take your ruler, and this pocket is 13.5 inches wide, so that'll be about 6 3/4. Yes, 6 3/4 in. Just wanted to make sure I didn't give you the wrong numbers there. Where's my pencil? So I'm going to measure in at 6 3/4 at the bottom, and again 6 3/4 at the top. And I'm using a chalk that will wash out, and just do a light line so that we know where to sew. So you'll just sew, like I said, around the edges and the bottom on this one, and then down that center line, and then you're going to sew all the way around this pocket to attach it. You don't need to leave the top open because you have the zipper. We'll go ahead and do that. And to top stitch, it means to sew really close to the edge of your project. I'm just going to start at the top. Once you get to the bottom, sometimes can be kind of hard to keep your project out of the way. When you turn your fabric, you want to leave your needle down inside your project. Okay, so what you should now have is your zippered pocket should be attached to the front, and so should the double pocket. Let me go ahead and remove the pins. And trim up any of the strings that we don't want to have on here. Okay.